Hi everyone, this is a quick video to get you started across Cursor, VS Code, and best ways to probably configure SPARC, which is the framework from Agentics. Now a quick one about how to quickly get started SPARC is by using this npx. Follow this npx page. So basically npx.js, npmjx.com package creates SPARC, and it's a very intuitive set of guidance that you can follow. However, I understand that many companies may have restrictions about the ability to run npx. So what I have created is a probably simpler way to do that. And that's what we're going to go through today. So just bear with me for a second to show you that. Yeah. So on the left hand side, I've got Cursor. On the right hand side, I've got VS Code. And I'm going to get rid of a few things here. I'm going to basically start the very new folder here. I'm going to start from scratch really. Okay, so first things first, there is a repository that I would like you to be aware of, and that repository is this one. I've just created it easy for you, so I'll put the links in the slide deck, but there are a set of rules here. These are sample rules which you can configure to your needs, or you can just get started with this. If you're using Windsurf, use Windsurf, Rue modes. If it is Rue, and if it is Cursor, then Cursor rules. They are all an abstraction of the main Rue modes, which is the SPARC methodology, and those rules are defined more so within here, right? Rule SPARC, etc. I'm not going to go into the details, but it's very easy. What we do is, let's start with Cursor. I am going to create a project that will be called Cursor demo. So I'm going to say open a project. So let me just create a new folder here and say that test, right? In fact, I will just say Cursor demo. Just create a random folder, open, there it is, right? And similarly, I'm going to do one on Visual Studio, which was over here. Got a few unnecessary windows open, which I want to close down. And bear with me for a second. Some reason that got closed. So I'm going to get a new window open here. View determine, view output, change it to outline over here. There we go. Rue over here. Excellent. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say file, new open folder. I'm going to similarly create VS Code demo here. So I've got two folders open here. Yes, I trust the authors. Just got rid of the terminal, so I'm going to reconfigure that. Okay, what you would have seen is I have manually dropped a set of files and folders in here. Like you see here, this is in Cursor, a set of rules which talks about how Cursor is meant to operate. And we have done the same thing in VS Code. In fact, you could have run this. If you have writes, you don't need to do the copy paste. If you had just, instead of doing what I just did, if you had, the same thing would have been achieved for Rue if you had run this command, right? So if I were on Visual Studio and I had wanted to use the configurations there, let me just get my Visual Studio up and running. If I had just come here and run this command to make it a bit more obvious here, if I had just run this command here, /force, it would have created the same folder structure for Rue and Rue modes. It wouldn't have created you Windsurf and Cursor rules. All I had done to create those Windsurf and Cursor rules was to run that command in Cursor and then ask Cursor something like look at the folders Rue and Rue modes and create me Cursor rules within the base directory. That's all I would have done, right? Now, to call out, if you're using Windsurf, you would use Windsurf rules, obviously, which are effectively the same thing as Cursor rules, but meant more for Windsurf. Now, let me demonstrate. So this is how the setup is meant to go. It is actually may look uphill, but it is pretty straightforward if you follow through. And we can go through more tomorrow if required. Now, the next thing to do is we're going to build something once this setup is done. So I'm going to just show you how to get started. So you can probably think of an idea and then get and build on it tomorrow when we meet. So in order to give us some ideas, propose some ideas to you for building suitable products tomorrow, I effectively just did a Google deep research and I asked, we are having this hackathon on the 21st of May, and that this gave me some ideas. So it gave me a set of ideas based on the events around this date. So let me just show you what I intend to do here. So if I go here and I download, in fact, let me just copy this whole thing in here. That may be the easiest way of doing it. Let's try it, right? What I will do here is that I'm going to do by idea dot, right? And I'm going to say paste the whole thing over here, right? That's what I did. I expect to see the ideas.md file over here. You see that's the ideas.md file that has got created as a simple text file. I'm going to do the same thing on Visual Studio. So just going to go here and I'm going to say in terminal here, I might just as well create it directly here. So I'll just create a file called ideas.md and I'm going to say save that. So it looks like this, right? Etc. 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 Okay. Now that I'm here, what you would, some things have happened, and that is that Visual Studio, when you by default you see these four modes: orchestrator, debug, ask, architect. You can use this. You can even use this, no problem. But I'm going to ask it to do something different now, and that is let me first see which setting I'm on. Let me just use something that is free. Pro, experimental, yeah, that's free. So let me use it. I mean, we can use we did requesty. We'll give you requesty tomorrow to use, but for now, look at .roommodes file and use the modes defined in it. When I do that, you see it's already detected it. There you go. Yeah. What it is missing here is a deep research mode, which I shall define now. Okay. It didn't detect because, well, bad request. Okay. My API key is expired. That's why. Okay. I understand why. It's okay. It is the same process effectively, but I'll just show it on cursor. If I now go to cursor and I have defined a mode here called deep research, which has, so if I ask it, so I want to create an app to support, to demonstrate during 2-hour hackathon, look at ideas MD and select one that is suitable randomly and then perform deep research. Do not create any code yet. I only want deep research that can guide my application develop later on. Okay, if I do that, watch what happens. I'm using Claude 3.7 Sonnet here. It's going to analyze my document, select a suitable project, and perform deep research to guide the developer during the 2-hour hackathon. So the reason you're seeing these folder structures getting created here, which is what you see, and you will see the same experience in VS Code as well if you want to, is because that's how the prompt is. Let me actually show you what the prompt is. So if I go here and I'm going to configure this in the main room modes file so it is available for you tomorrow. If I go in here and I go to edit and advanced, you'll see this bit here, which I'm copy pasting here. There is prompt against it that says the following, that you should use Perplexity advanced search capability to retrieve accurate information, organize it into comprehensive research documentation, craft precise queries, do the following, and organize it as initial queries, scope definition, the structure, create an executive summary, etc. And lots of information to look for knowledge gaps, cross-validations in this thorough research effectively. It also has been prompted to use an MCP tool, but I don't have MCP configured. So I'm basically using basically Claude is using 3.7 is effectively using his access to the internet to give me suitable information. So it's not really probably using Perplexity but I'll get reasonably good research here. That's most important. You can go as sophisticated as you would like, but for now, let's just do this. So the final report has not yet been created. It's still working. Let it work through a process. I'll let it happen. Meanwhile, I'll update the room modes with the deep research option. So what you have seen me do here is edit the room modes file and add the deep research slug, and where it's telling me it's giving the same instructions to root that I used and in my configured cursor rules, right? So if I now close it and I go back to root here again, I should see my new deep research mode come up here, as you can see, right? Which is great. Now what I have done is I have modified my API key to be the latest one, and I'll perform the same command that I had done at using cursor. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I would go back to my original command that I gave here. I'm going to copy that. Now we are in the VS Code Studio demo. So I'm going to select deep research mode first. I'm going to ask that. I'm going to ask it to look at ideas that follow, and then I'm going to say do that. Okay, still giving me bad request because it still thinks my API key has expired, which is strange because I've just updated my API key. So let me see if I did not do so. So I canceled. It would have worked, but I'm just stuck into probably too many messages from Google, so I cannot show you on this. So I'll stick with my cursor demo for now, and I accept everything here. Right, I've accepted. So I can see loads of documents have been created. as you can see here, scope definitions. In fact, the best way for this to be seen is probably if I add this to a remote repository. So just bear with me for a second. I have just pushed those files to a remote repository, cursor demo. And as you can see, what it has done is that you got the SPARC rules in the README file. However, more importantly is a research folder. I'm going to show you, start with the initial ones where it talks about the scope definitions, right? What it is doing, research boundaries, expected outcomes, and the key questions it asks around, what gamification elements are most proven in the mobile application development? How can user-generated content be incorporated, enhance engagement, etc., etc. It's been guided by the prompts. And then finally, lots of things like data collections, primary findings, secondary findings, and then I'll go straight to synthesis, practical application, right? So these are potentially marine rescue gameplay loop, right? This is what it is. And then finally, if we go to the table of contents, you can see executive summary gives you an implementation strategy for 2 hours. So setup, core experiences, refinement, packaging, gives you some recommendations like how do you select framework, Flutter for animation capabilities, React Native if your team has stronger JavaScript experience, gives kind of a technical high level technical architecture, etc., etc. And then finally, what we're going to do now to showcase you what we can do is I'm going to move to the agent mode here. It acts more like project manager. Okay, so we're going to show you an idea of how to initiate a thing. So what I will say is that reference the research and let's see if we can want to select a particular example, practical application. So let's look at let's build the application. So when I say this, let me just slightly change it. Follow the SPARC method. Feel free to use the custom modes of architect the solution. You may optionally give or you may not give, it doesn't really matter. Autocode to code. So just asking you to use a virtual environment to isolate the dependencies effectively and just a modification. So it has built a few features so far. And as you can see, what has done is done a test-driven development approach here. And it is continuously also following some kind of a branching strategy to update the GitHub. So it's updating the project context and then it is effective. I am presuming it would check it in. So let's check that. There we go. It's actually creating, and we can verify this by moving to GitHub here, for example. Let's check what has happened. If I refresh this, go to cursor demo. Okay, it's currently uploaded to the main branch. Probably it's not following the branching strategy as much as I would have wanted it to, but let's check that out a little bit more. There's only one branch. It's not pushed the changes yet, that's why. But if I check here, it's probably added the changes, but it's not pushed them in yet. We can influence the behavior by letting it, if it followed the branching strategy. Yeah, it's a demo. We'll have to check why it is not doing it. So I think we are pretty much there now. It's done a lot of testing on its own because we asked it to adopt a test-driven development. You can see the tests are passing feature by feature. And finally, it seems to be trying to stop the application. So you see created actually feature branches here. So git branch, if you check that. Interesting why I can't see it here. We'll figure out why this is happening. So tests are failing, they have failed in the past, then it makes changes and it's continuing to pass the test. So here you can see the tests have been passed for those components and then it is going on and committing those changes to Git. It seems to be checking out, develop and merging it. So what had happened, for some reason, the feature branches had got created locally and not in my remote repository. And somehow Cursor was unaware that I had a remote repository connected. So I kind of asked it the question saying that this had been committed and pushed to, it thought that there was only local, it didn't have a remote repository information. So I asked it to commit to my remote repository. It did in a few steps here. Then I asked what happened to my branches because it gathered lots of branches and it developed feature by feature. And then it realized that, okay, it didn't, it had already committed them to the merged them to the main branch. So it is not maintaining. So there has been a bit of a miss about branching strategy because it couldn't probably pick up the branching strategy properly. But what it shows though is that even if you had an error like that, it is very easy to recover, as you can see. So all of my changes are in our remote repository here. Interestingly, I am unable to open this. Why? So I seem to have a problem here. When I click on it, did upload, but seem to be unable to obviously enter this particular folder here, right? So I'm a bit surprised. Why is that the case? I've asked the question, so let's see what it comes back. So it thought it's a submodule because we were having a local git. When it merged, it didn't remove the .git directory. Okay, so it's going to do step by step. Let's see what happens. Having done that, as you can see now, I can actually go in. It's no longer treated as a submodule here. So you can see details of the project in here. Okay, manually access and that's it. All right, let's see what it says. I'm asking basically what else remains before I can access the application. Okay, so something seems to have started. There you go, Ocean Garden. Welcome to Ocean Garden. How old are you? Well, of course, I am probably 13 plus, but let's go in there. Let's meet the animals. Well, Timmy the turtle. Let's help Timmy. Timmy is a green sea turtle. Of course, we haven't put the pictures here, which we can do later on. Sea turtles often mistake plastic bags for jellyfish. Okay, Timmy needs your help to escape from plastic. Help Timmy. Well, it's a rescue mission, please. I don't think this has been completed yet, but it shows you what is possible. So let's tell it that I don't see anything in the rescue mission page for the turtle. Let's see what it does. So whilst it does that, let's just look at some of the files that have been created in here. So project README talks about what has been done. So structure, architecture, user context, animal context, context, etc., etc. Animal detail page was pending, as you could see there. So what did it do? Content filtering, marine animal character profiles, etc., etc. This is what it did. This is how it did the testing. These were the next steps. So I'm creating some images to be included in the app. I'm just using Gemini to do that. Let's test this now. So help Timmy by collecting all the plastic waste in the ocean. Okay, let's look at what is plastic here. If we zoom in here, well, that's plastic. Put it no, I can just click it basically. There we go. That's not plastic. This is plastic. Is it plastic? Probably. This is plastic. And then you say, well, it's basically simple game. Okay, great job. Continue. All right, there we go. Now you could modify it. I just want to get the images right. So I'm going to try that finally to get the images in there. Yeah, so it looks like it is picked up, except my Timmy the turtle, which is not being picked up because it is not in the right name. So if I do that now, I should see Timmy the turtle. So I can see them home. I can see the animals. I can learn about okay, the learn page isn't done. Let me complete the learn page as well. Page. Okay, so we have our app ready, all the pages, animal pages. You can click on them to help Delia rescue them from the ocean by removing all the plastic waste. 8 of 8 plastic removed. There seems to be some kind of an error here, but it thinks I picked 7 of 8. But anyways, we can fix that later on. But if I try with Sammy as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this time I've done. So I've helped Sammy. The seabird, there's things about learning. You can build these modules further. What is plastic pollution, etc., etc. Actions like, the educational material. See, effectively, we have an app, functioning app ready, hosted. And just to call out, what did we do so far? We kind of created over 3,000 lines of code effectively in a space of an hour or so, which obviously has a value associated with it. And yeah, and I guess the point is that we could start it from nothing, and at the end of an hour or so, we have a valuable app to play with, and anyone potentially can do the same. So thank you. Hope you found this useful. See you tomorrow.